Welcome back to the channel. This is the Earth Science Classroom. This video is on the Demographic Transition Model, the DTM, and this is part human geography, part anthropology, and part, obviously, demographics, looking at a population change of a certain country over time, and in this case, looking at industrialization, the crude birth rate, and crude death rate. So let's check this model out. This is the Earth Science Classroom. Ever since the start of industrialization, where countries began to mechanize and industrialize their production of materials, the workforce, the labor force, and moving from that rural to urbanized setting in their countries, providing more work and the general development of a country, including medical advances, healthcare, education, infrastructure, utilities, and of course the economy. But in 1929, Warren Thompson developed this model looking at a country's industrialization over time and what happened to the birth rate and death rate during this industrialization, and how these two very simple demographic factors of a country can indicate a great deal of information regarding the current or present situation in that country and the future implications of industrialization and the changes to the birth and death rate in regards to various categories and characteristics of a country. By 1929, many Western Europe and North American countries had gone through the initial stages of industrialization, and observing the changes to crude birth rate and crude death rate were indicating the level of industrialization of that particular country and this how far they've got over a certain time in regards to industrializing their country. And Thompson made four main stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and every country would fit somewhere along this model between stage 1 and stage 5. Now, stage 5 has been added because of the recent 21st century changes to certain countries that Thompson may or may not have considered back in 1929. Stage 1 of the DTM is where every country has or had started at some point in history. It is the pre-industrial, pre-modern stage where countries have a lower population but a very high crude birth rate and a very high crude death rate. So the population is balanced, it's in an equilibrium whereby there's a lot of births in the country and a lot of deaths in the country, and deaths occur all through different ages, from infant mortality through young, through middle age, and of course into the older age, where you might find life expectancy would be lower around the 50 or 60 year point, and this would correspond to only a few areas of the world, perhaps tribal areas or perhaps certain parts of a country that haven't been developed, but this is a rare find in terms of a overall country in today's world in the 21st century. However, every country did start at this point, and what you find is it's a rural agricultural based industry, and you have war and conflict and disease, and you have pandemics that would devastate the population, and you would have a poor standard of living. Stage 2 is a dramatic change from stage 1. What you have is an age structure diagram that is still a pyramid, still a wide base and a narrower top as you go up into the older age groups, both for male and female. What this suggests is that the birth rate is still high. However, the death rate is not. It drops dramatically as a country goes from stage 1 into stage 2 and begins that transition to industrialization, to becoming a wealthier country with a better standard of living overall. So the decrease in death rate could be a consequence or a product of increased medical opportunities and availability, could be an increase in education, could be an increase in the quality of water, quality of food, access to food, the amount of food and fresh food, could be the access to housing, could be access to utilities like electricity and heat. And also you're looking at the increase in the economy. So this country is going to go through and transition into an industrialized country. And currently, places like Yemen, Uganda, and Afghanistan are characterized as a stage 2 country. Now, stage 3 is quintessentially the time where a country has become industrialized. It has gone through the process of stage 1, which is more rural, agricultural, kind of 1700s, 1600s, and then stage 2 was that transition with the 1800s, and now this country has become industrialized, and the factories, the cities are growing. You get the start of suburbia, you get the movement of people from rural areas towards the urban areas looking for jobs. You're changing the manufacturing, you're changing the industries, the economy is growing, and you also have a smaller natural increase because the death rate kind of lowers and becomes more stable, and the birth rate is going to reciprocate, it's going to drop. It's going to drop from that higher stage 2 level down towards the death rate at a lower amount. But the population is still going to grow because there's still a large portion of natural increase where you have more births than deaths contributing to an increase in country population. So the age structure diagram would be more stationary, more consistent, more rectangular, whereby each age group, the newborns, the youth, middle-aged, and old age, would become more even in terms of the percentage of how many males and females are in each age group from birth to the longer and increased life expectancy. So this is, again, a consequence of industrialization in terms of the medical treatments and availability, education, wealth, and also the smaller families in terms of the total fertility rate of women between the age of 15 and 44 having less children than they used to back in stage 2. Now, countries currently like the Philippines, Costa Rica, and Turkey, which was previously Turkey, now it's Turkey, is a good example of a stage 3 industrialized country. This is now stage 4, so we're into the post-industrialization of a country. Now, in 1929, when Thomson devised this model, there were 4 stages because of the presumed consequence of what industrialization would do to a country if they are in this stage for a given amount of time. So the country will be modernized. The country will have a stable and well-working economy. The workforce, the welfare programs are funded, and education is developed or increasing. Therefore, this would reflect in the age structure diagram, whereby it will be a narrow base of less children being born. So we can look at the decreasing TFR around the replacement level of 2.1 or even lower. You can also look at the increased life expectancy of people in that country living longer because they have access to medical care. They have access to medical programs and welfare programs and things like national insurance or social security in their countries that will provide them with enough money to live a decent life with a decent standard of living post-retirement. Looking at migration considerations of the amount of people coming into a country because they want to enjoy the level of standard of living that this country provides, being stage 4. Looking at the growth of suburbia, the growth of public transport and utilities, and the access to doctors, therefore the injections, the jabs, the reduction of diseases in young people and old people, the lowering of infant mortality rates. So families aren't requiring to have 5, 6 children, they're only going to have 1 or 2 children. And also the economy, how much it costs to have children, to afford a house. So both parents are perhaps working 1 or 2 jobs to maintain the wealth in the family, to maintain that standard of living. So all these changes happen in stage 4, and countries like the US, Canada, Brazil, Australia, France, England, and China are all in this stage. In the 21st century, certain countries have moved from stage 4 into this new stage 5 category, which really is looking at the decline or continued decline of the birth rate in that country falling below its death rate, meaning that the death rate is consistent as the same with stage 4. However, the families in this country are having less and less babies, falling way below the 2.1 replacement level value or number, and the age structure diagram reflects this with a very narrow base. A very small percentage of the population in this country is young or youth between 0 and 14, both male and female, and they're having one child or maybe even 0 children, or they're having children later in life because these people want to pursue a career, education into their 20s and 30s, even early 40s, before even considering getting married or even having children in any different role within their social structure. So the older age group of this population, this country, will increase with a high life expectancy, with high standard of living, but it's also very hard to keep up in terms of the economy. So these people are working, both male and female, working with equal availability of jobs and money, and the country's issue is going forward a lowering of population because there's less children being born, and also the workforce. If there's less children being born in 15, 20 years, will there be enough people able to work the jobs that are required, and also a much larger retirement, older age group of male and females that have retired and don't work, don't contribute to the economy of the country because of the lack of income tax from their lack of working, and that would also put a strain on the country in terms of how to afford all of these social and welfare programs for their older people that live in the country that aren't dying because of their standard of living is so high. So there's various issues with this stage 5 as well. There are definitely some demographic stats that can cause a country concern for its future. For example, a country like South Korea and Germany and Japan have all experienced in recent years a sharp decline in their birth rate. As a review of birth rate and death rate through the 5 stages, you can also see the correlation between population of that country and how it changes between stage 1 being stable and lower, increasing in stage 2, further increase in stage 3 because of the natural increase, because the birth rate is still dropping slowly, and then it kind of tapers off on that carrying capacity, so to speak, in stage 4 with the post-industrialization stage. You'll see in stage 5 that decrease in population of the country caused by a decrease of birth rate, decrease in birth rate, which goes below the death rate. In conclusion, the DTM is a great tool for analyzing a country's current status and future demographic implications and considerations based on the stage the country's in and where they're going and how fast they're going based on the age structure diagram and other demographic characteristics. However, this model is not perfect. There are some limitations to the DTM in terms of it doesn't include many global changes like pandemics, in terms of the changes to fertility rate of women, and it's very general in terms of just using crude death rate and crude birth rate. However, the migration issue has to be involved as well, and the changing world in general is different than it was in 1929. So there's no fault of Thomson's, and this model is very effective at using certain stats to imply the demographic status and future of a country. However, it's not a perfect model and has to be used with more current and more up-to-date stats in demographics in order to really have an overall grasp on a country's status and where they are going. This is the Earth Science Classroom. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe, like, and share. And if you want more content and videos on Earth Science, please check out my channel.